So again, while there are several different ways that you can draft the basic pattern set, like from the set of measurements from a model or from a person, that is a dress form, or from a client or from yourself. This is just one way I'm going to show you today. Here I have the tools I'm going to use today. This is my 2x18 clear plastic ruler. It's just a nice thing to have because you can see through it, and it already is divided in inches, halves, and quarters, eighths and sixteenths. Okay, and then I have two curved rulers here today. This one is for necklines and armholes, and I use this one, the styling ruler, for the same. Remember that these curved tools are just for truing your lines up. These are for guides to help you as you start to draft and work with making patterns more. You will find that you can draft and you'll get better at drawing in the lines. Then you can finish up with your curved rulers. I also have my square ruler here, of course, for making sure that my straight lines are straight. Okay, so we're going to get started. What I'm going to do is today use the alphabet. Some people use numbers, and I'm going to call out to you the part of the body that I am marking, as well as the letter. Okay, again, this is one way to do it. In general, when I do this, I like for students to picture the part of the body. That is the best way to learn this, and to not focus on so much the numbers or the letters, but to actually focus on the part of the body that we're marking. Remember that we are drafting for 1/2 or 1/4 of the body. So this is the front bodice, and so when we're drafting for just 1/4 of the body, we have to divide the numbers, the measurements, by 4, and then we can add ease to that, or we can add the dart intake to that after we have divided it. Now, the only time you will draft two fronts or two backs of the front and back bodice, or front and back skirt, or front and back pants sloper is if you can see that there is a difference, or if the difference between both sides of the body is different by a certain amount. In designing, if one side of the design is different, for instance, one shoulder, one side has a sleeve, then of course you're going to be making a pattern for one side, for both sides of the body. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is mark the longest part of the body, which is on the front of your body, the center front, but it is not your center front measurement. It is your full length. That's the measurement from your neck down, where your neck and shoulder meet, down to your waist, and that's your center front line. And for us, that is point A to point B, and I'm just going to draw a straight line. Point A to point B. Okay, and I'm just going to write here that this is my center front line. I'll put CF there. Okay, now again, that's A, and this is point B. but this is my full length. This is the neck and shoulder crease. This is the waist. The next thing I'm going to mark is A to C. And A to C is my shoulder width divided by 2. So it's my shoulder width divided by 2. And after I divide that by 2, then I'm going to mark that number here, which is usually on the average about 16, so it'll be about 8. Okay, and so we'll mark that here, and this will be my shoulder width, and I'll label that C. So from A to C is my shoulder width, and I'm just going to write this here so we can remember what it is. Okay, now that I have my shoulder width, I'm going to go back to my center front, and I'm going to mark my center front length. The center front length is the measurement that is taken from right underneath your chin down to your waist, and that measurement is, you can take that from B down here all the way up, and what it ends up being is your neck divided by 4. Remember, all your circumference measurements are divided by 4, and here the measurements were the neck measurement was 10 divide 10 by 4. You're going to get a little bit over 3, and so it would be that was A to B, this is A to C, this is going to be A to D, and so we would end up going about 3 1/4 here, and this would end up being our neck. This is actually our center front, but this is our neckline we're ending up with here. And so that is our, let me make sure I put that there so you guys know what that is. This is D, and this would be our center front length. Okay, all right, and then I'm going to come up here to the neckline here, to the this is the shoulder, and now A to E will be another 3 1/4, because again our neck was divided by 4, so that's 1 2 3, my little quarter here. Now I could go ahead and just draw in my neckline here, because that's what all of that was about, and again this would be point E. So if I wanted to, I could just go ahead and come in the 3 1/4 here and bring these lines together here and go ahead and put in my neckline. And again, you could go ahead, you know this is going to be the neckline here, but if you feel nervous about drawing in a neckline, you can make yourself a guideline here, and to make sure you don't go in too deep here, and what you do is just make yourself a little 1-inch diagonal line here, just a little guideline here. And when you do that, then you take your curved ruler and make sure that it is touching here, here, here. Go ahead and draw in your neckline. Okay, now you got your neckline, and don't worry if it's not perfect now, because we're going to go back in and true up our lines. All right, so we've got our neckline, and now we're going to put in our shoulder slope. But we're going to start out at this being our waist down here where B is. And what we're going to do is put the ruler here and bring it up towards the shoulder here, because this is going to be our shoulder slope. The reason we have this measurement is because this is the shoulder, this is the front neckline. Well, we aren't made like this. Our shoulders don't just go straight across. They dip, they slope a little. So to figure out this for a custom measurement, depending upon your bust line, your waist, how your figure is, you're going to have a shoulder slope. Everybody will have one that's a little bit different. So in order to find out what it is, you would have to take this measurement on the person. The way it's taken is from the center front at your belly button up to your shoulder, that bone right in your shoulder tip. You take that measurement. And here my measurement was 17 and a half. So what I'm going to do, come here and keep the ruler pointed right up to where my shoulder is here, and mark where my slope would be, which would be here, 17 and a half, right here. Okay, and you can draw this line in if you want to. I think we should, so we can remember that that's one of the measurements we took. And this would be the shoulder slope, and this would be B to, that's right, slope. So this is B to C. Okay, so here I'm going to, now that I have my new shoulder line, I'm going to connect it right there to the shoulder tip. Okay, so now that looks realistic, how we really are made, how our shoulders dip a little bit here. So we've got our neckline, we've got our shoulder line here, and we've got our center front here. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and put in our armhole. Now, our armhole, around, that measurement is taken around your armhole, or around the arm of the mannequin. It's usually between 8 and 9 inches, and you divide that by 2. Again, you get about 16 inches or so, and you divide it by 2, and you get 8. So you come here and you measure down 8 inches. Okay, so you just take your ruler here, make sure it's the top here, because you want your lines to be straight, and then you just measure down 8 inches. Now what's cool about this ruler is, again, I can line it up here and use it to make sure that my line is straight. Because I got a line straight there, I know I can make me a straight line here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So now I've got my armhole here. All right. So now I've got my C to E here. I think we're at E. Let's see, what do we have? A, C. So we are at, actually we're at F, C to F. Okay. I really don't usually, again, like to use these letters. I like for you to know the part of the body that we're using. So this would be half of the armhole here. So I've got that. Once I have this measurement, I actually have my upper bust or chest measurement. So what I can do now is my horizontal measurements, which are divided by 4 because they are my circumference measurements. So let's go ahead and put those here. Now, before we can do that, we need to know what our bust depth is. That means from your shoulder down to where your chest line is. We already have that here. Okay. And then from your shoulder down to your bust line. Now, on the average woman, that is about 10 or 11. Here it's about 10 inches, and so we are going to put that there, and then we know where our waist is here. So let's go ahead and put in our lines here. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is mark my chest line in, and it is divided by 4, and I'm going to mark that measurement plus a 1/2 inch ease. Okay, so it's divided by 4 plus a 1/2 inch ease. That's what I'm marking here on my chest line or upper bust measurement. Okay, once I get that marked, like that there, and now I can go down to my bust line and mark my bust line, which is my bust divided by 4 plus a ½ inch ease. And you might find, depending upon the figure, that these are pretty usually pretty close, and usually they're about an inch, ½ inch apart from one another. Okay, so let's write in what these are. This is my chest. This is my bust. Now let's go ahead and mark our waistline. The thing with the waistline is, you notice how we divided the chest line and the bust line by 4, and we added the ease in there. Well, with the waistline, we're going to divide the waist measurement by 4, but we're going to add 1 inch because we have to add a dart there. Okay, and the 1 inch, extra 1 inch is for the dart. So we're going to our waist, we're going to mark the waist divided by 4. Now, these are measurements you should already have written down. I have a little chart, and I'm using that chart, plus 1 inch. For your dart. And now what I can do is go ahead and connect these lines. Okay, all right, and this is my waistline. I can go ahead and write that here. Now it's time for me to go ahead and draw in my armhole. Now the first thing I'm going to do is some standard measurements. For women, we curve out in the front because we have our bust line here. So there's a difference between our front armhole and our back armhole. And so we have to have more room in the front armhole than we do in the back armhole. So therefore, we have to find the halfway point here. And this is 8, so we'll find 4. Okay, and then we have to make this a little bit longer. The way we do that is to make it curve in so that this ends up being a little bit longer, and we have to measure in. The standard is 3/8 of an inch, so we'll mark 3/8 of an inch. That's in, so that's 1, 2, and 3/8 of an inch. So I have to go in that much right there in order so that this armhole is not too tight. Because we are curved in the front. Now it's okay for the back to be straight, and you'll find with mass-produced garments that there might not be a difference between the front and the back armholes, and that is why you end up having to have alterations done, or something's not fitting right and things like that. Okay, so now we have that part done. We have done that. Now we're going to do like we did with the neckline here. We're going to put in our diagonal guideline here because we want to draw in our armhole curve. And so we want to put our curve, our straight ruler here, and draw ourselves a guideline. Again, this is so we don't put our curve too deep into our armhole here. So we'll put a little guideline there. All right. Now, this is a little bit different because we know we have to go in here. And what I like to do is from the tip of the shoulder to this point, mark that first. Okay? Now all you want to do is make sure that it looks reasonable, because again, we're going to go back and we're going to do some work on it to make it look decent, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Now after I do that, I'm going to use my tool to just go around a little bit and just kind of work this around to make sure that I'm touching all the points I want to be touching. So I know I want to touch here because I don't want to go too deep in there, but I have to touch here too. Okay, so I'm going to come here, come back around here, but I know also I have to touch here. So again, I'm kind of using a combination of, and you'll get better at this because again, when you do custom design and you're dealing with custom measurements, there is no perfect set way of doing it, where you just on everybody. Everybody's not going to have the same armhole. Okay, so now we've got our armhole in there. So now it's time for us to get ready to do our waist dart. So in order for us to be able to do that, the first thing we have to do is locate where this dart is going to be. Okay, in order to do that, we have to use another measurement here at our bust line. There is a measurement that is from bust point to bust point, and that is the bust span. And on the average woman, it is 8 inches, and so we divide that in half. So that would be 4, and we mark that here, and that would be where your bust point would be located. Again, this is bust point to bust point, if that was the other side of the body there. So that would be bust point to bust point. So the measurement would be 8, and we're marking half of it, which would give us the location of our bust point. And usually I like to make sure it looks like a little X there. All right, this is the bust point. Once we find the bust point, let's go ahead and put our location, our dart, the center of our dart leg, because that's what it gives us. Okay, and so all you do is line the ruler up here straight here at the bottom and make sure we're in the center of this of our bust point here. Okay, and that will give us the center of our dart leg. All right, now we said we were going to have a 1-inch dart, so that means we have to have a 1/2 inch marked on each side. So what you do is put your ruler here, mark a 1/2 inch on this side and a 1/2 inch on this side. Now we're not going to put our other legs on here yet because we have something else we have to mark. Now here, when we marked in here, that was our bust span. I'm just going to put a little note here, bust span, and that was 8, and we divided it by 2. Okay, and that gave us our bust point. The next thing is our bust radius around the bust point. Now the reason this measurement is important is because if you sew your dart all the way up to this point, you're going to have a sharp point right where your bust point is, and that's unattractive and unappealing, and we don't want that, right? So what we do is we mark at least 1 inch away from that point around the whole bust. That's the radius. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody's bust radius is going to be the same. It means that everybody has a bust radius, and it's going to depend on the size of your bust. Okay, but we need to make sure we mark it on our patterns, because you want to make sure that you don't you don't make pleats, darts, or anything else that come into this area. That's just not a flattering look. Okay, so we're going to mark all the way around here. Now, if I was going to do some more pattern work, I might go ahead and make my circle around here, the 1 inch. But since I'm just drafting the front bodice here to show you guys, I'm just going to mark my 1 inch away, and I'm going to put a note here that my radius, I'll put the bust radius, and the amount that I used is 1 inch. Okay, and now that I have that done, now I can put the other legs in for my dart. So I'll come here and I'll go ahead and finish drawing in my dart, and I don't have to worry about that sharp point happening because I have marked it off. Okay, so now I've got, gotta get that nice and it's a little wiggly. Okay, there we go. Now, so I've got my waist dart in. So technically we're done. Okay, we need to go in and true our lines up, meaning we need to go in and and make our lines darker, and then we can go ahead and cut it out. Now if we wanted to add a bust dart here, we could go ahead and do that too. So just so you know, if you're drafting this and you want to have a bust dart, you could go ahead and mark from the bust line. Okay, this is the waist dart. From the bust line, what you could do, you can put this dart in the shoulder, anywhere you want to, but you at least 9 other places on you can put this. You can combine it here, but you must make sure that it does not go inside this radius. Here I'm just going to show you how you could do it if you wanted to put it right at the side waist here. And the way that you would do that is to measure 1 inch away from the bust line, mark it, and then you draw a line to the bust point. Now watch this, because remember we got the radius. We're not going to go in there. I'm just looking, watching, and I want to use this to go to that line. Okay, I'll draw it in a little bit darker for you. Okay, so here's the line here. I know I can't go within that line, so now I'm going to make this a 1 inch dart too. So I'll measure 1 inch on both sides. Okay, and I'll go ahead and put my drawing my dart legs. Okay. Now now I've got my bust dart. Usually when we are going to take our bodice sloper and we're going to use it to make another pattern from it, we usually will take this dart and combine it so that we are only dealing with one dart on our pattern. But just so that you know, once you have this dart here, on the side, you have to extend the waist by 1 inch in order for this to work. Okay, and the reason you have to do that is because you just took away some of the side seam, the side length. When you close this dart, this will be short unless you add that extra on there. So the next thing you would do would be to add on here 1 inch and blend it to the front. Okay, so we weren't planning on doing that. I just wanted to show you guys that. So this would be the one way that you can draft the front bodice. And then of course you want to go ahead and put in all the information here. I did not add seam allowance, so I want to put that this is the front bodice. The measurements I used were from a size 8 dress form. You need to cut 2. Okay, there is no seam allowance added, so I'll put no SA. Okay, I will go ahead and put my grain line here. Okay, and everything else that would go on a regular pattern, you would want to make sure that you put on here. And so I'm putting a double because it doesn't matter which way you I'm assuming that if you're using this pattern here, that you're going to be using probably muslin, just a basic cross grain and straight grain fabric. And so it's not going to make, you're just going to want to be on the straight grain. Okay, so I hope this helps. Just remember, there's a lot of ways, and you need to learn a few ways to do it, and then you're going to get into a little groove where you create your own little way of doing it. The important thing is that you learn the basics, rules of what you have to do. Okay, so that your measurements are right. Okay, don't just make up a way without learning the right way to do it first. there's always going to be something new when it comes to pattern making and pattern drafting. And just remember, there's a difference between the drafting and the pattern making. Pattern drafting has to come before pattern making. You draft a set of patterns from measurements, and you make patterns from drafted patterns. You have to start with a pattern to make another pattern from it. Okay. All right. So I hope this helps. I'm going to be doing a lot of different ways, showing my students a lot of different ways to do this in my pattern making class. I'm going to be doing all the basic pattern pieces to the pattern set, and then we're going to be exploring making patterns from our basic set. So I hope you join us, and I hope this was helpful to you. If you watch the video and you have a question or anything, please feel free to ask. Have a great day. Professor Jones here.